What's going on, everyone? And welcome back to another episode of the Believe in Jets podcast. I am your host, DTereman, where we are celebrating the New York Jets' very first victory of the 2025 season and the very first victory under head coach Aaron Glenn. They moved to 1-7, entering their bye week, so they don't play another game for 2 weeks. And in this one, it was complimentary football when you needed it the most. Offense played well throughout most of this game. Defense got off the field in crucial times in the second half specifically. And coaching made a ton of in-game coaching decisions that ended up propelling this team to its very first victory. So an all-around complimentary performance by the New York Jets. And they end up besting the Cincinnati Bengals 39-38 on the road. Like I said, they improved to 1-7 going into their bye week, but it didn't look all that convincing, right? They had to come back from 15 points twice. The game started very quickly, 10-0, after the New York Jets on their first drive failed a fourth down conversion attempt. It looked like Justin Fields went under center and had a quarterback sneak called, and then he checked out of it. We assume it was the quarterback sneak. He checks out of it to a toss play right to running back Breece Hall, where he is stuffed in the backfield for no conversion. And then the Bengals were easily able to turn that into a touchdown to make it 10-0. Then the Nick Folk field goal comes, first of 3 field goals for Nick Folk happens to make it 10-3. And then it's followed up by a T. Higgins 44-yard touchdown pass where he beats rookie A.Z. Thomas, who is in for the injured Sauce Gardner dealing with a concussion. So you're already 17-3 very quickly in this football game. New York is then faced with a 4th and 2 situation in the red zone where they desperately needed a touchdown. They couldn't settle for a field goal to make it 17-6. Justin Fields throws a corner route to Tyler Johnson on a spot concept. Tyler Johnson comes open, Fields' beautiful ball, 15-yard pass right over the shoulder in the bucket to cut the lead to 17-10. On the ensuing Bengals possession, they get a 19-yard Chase Brown touchdown where he's lined up man-to-man against Quincy Williams in the red zone, and then he ends up splitting the 2 safety tacklers in the third level of the field, stretching across the pylon to make it 24-10. With about 1:15 left in the half, the Jets still possessing 2 timeouts. Aaron Glenn is faced with the third half situation again, right? The first 2 weeks, or the prior 2 weeks, I should say, he had a big blunder going into halftime where he sacrificed an attempt for points to just go into the locker room as is with the score. This time, 1:15 left with 2 timeouts. Justin Fields is able to lead the offense down the field. They end up settling for a field goal to make it 24-13 entering the locker room, only down 9. For everything that happened in the first half, it is actually pretty stunning to only be down 9 points, but nonetheless, the Jets were very much in this football game. Coming out in the second half, both offenses were forced to punt. The Jets and then the Bengals were forced to punt. And the Jets opened the second half scoring with a field goal to make it 24-16, That drive included a 50-yard run by Isaiah Davis up the right sideline, the first of many explosive runs by this tandem backfield of him and Breece Hall. Make it a 1-score game, 24-16, and then the defensive drive that nearly ends in a turnover. A.Z. Thomas makes a tremendous play to break up a pass on the sidelines. Unfortunately, he steps out of bounds before intercepting the pass, so he was unable to reestablish himself in bounds legally. And although he did come up with the interception, it technically was ruled incomplete. Of course, the very next play, Samaje Perine scores on a big touchdown run. And at that point, you start getting nervous. It's 31-16. Can the Jets come back from 15 points? It was starting to feel like a comeback may just not be in the cards for the team today. On that ensuing Jets possession, Breece Hall gets an explosive run of his own. First, it was the 50-yard run by Isaiah Davis. Now it was a 35-yard run by Breece Hall, and he ends up capping off that drive, getting his very first touchdown run of the season Only took 8 games for Breece Hall to find the end zone. Luckily for the Jets, he was not done scoring this game. Cincinnati gashed the Jets' run defense quite a few times, Samaje Perine and Chase Brown alike, en route to an easy touchdown to then go back up 38-24. So you're again, back at that 14-point deficit, and you're thinking, okay, do the Jets have enough time left on the clock? Then they get a very fast touchdown, which is capped off by Breece's second touchdown run of the day, a ridiculous 27-yard run up the right-hand sideline. It thought it was going to be reviewed, stepped out at the 3, but he does a really good job of staying in the game. And this moment right here is where I think coaching won the day for the New York Jets. Down 38-30, facing an 8-point deficit, Aaron Glenn calls to go for 2-point conversion. Now, in real time, I'll be honest, I was not a huge fan of this. I understand the analytics say, hey, you should probably go for 2 here to make it easier for you later on so that we're not playing for a tie. So I understood the analytics of it. I just felt like game flow said, hey, maybe we should go for kicking it and just make it a 7-point game. Fine. They go for it. I was a little, not angry, but a little disappointed that they decided to go for it. Justin Fields makes an incredible play throwing out of the sack to Isaiah Davis, who's running towards the front pylon on the right side of the field. It looked like Isaiah Davis caught it and then was ruled short initially on the field. That was the call. Then Aaron Glenn doubles down on his decision to go for 2 and challenges the spot and says, hey, I think our guy caught it before he was tackled short of the line again. I think he had crossed the goal line. They take it to review, and it looks like the ball hits the inside pocket of Isaiah Davis's left arm as it's crossing the goal line. They rule that possession. Ref comes and overturns the call. Now it's 32-38 with 7 minutes and 50 seconds left. So the Jets make the biggest coaching decision so far of Aaron Glenn's career, going for 2-point conversion right there, and it pays off. So it's 32-38 with 7 minutes and 52 seconds left. The Jets defense responds with a huge stop, their biggest stop of the day. Will McDonald on a stunt comes free and gets a huge sack of Joe Flacco. The Jets would then take the ball downfield and cap off their go-ahead drive with the most gutsy call coming out of the 2-minute timeout, A minute 58 seconds left. They're in the red zone. They run a toss right running back pass by Breece Hall, who probably threw the most ill-advised throw, except for the fact that the defensive back was turned around looking at Mason Taylor. So Breece Hall, identifying DJ Turner's back to him, throws it up to Mason Taylor, who does his best "You've Got Mossed" impression over DJ Turner, one of Cincinnati's ascending defensive backs. And he goes up and catches one on his head for a 2-point conversion, or for the touchdown, the go-ahead touchdown to make it 38-38. And now all you need is an extra point to be leading in this ball game. The Jets do exactly that, 39-38. One more stop to make. You had about 1 minute 40 seconds left on the clock. Jermaine Johnson gets home on a huge 3rd down pressure, which forces a lazy, wobbly pass out of bounds by Joe Flacco. And then on 4th down, he's targeting Andre Yoshivas over the center of the field. And Jarvis Brownlee, who has just been playing lights out football for the New York Jets since coming over in a trade via the Tennessee Titans, he makes a huge 4th and 9 pass breakup on Yoshivas to end the game. 27 seconds left. The Jets come back out and kneel it. And the Jets go home into the bye week 1-7 with a huge victory. Justin Fields no longer has that record of 0-1000 when the defense scores 21 points against him. He now has that record erased. He now can just take all the things that the owner has said to him throughout the week and put it all behind him. I feel like it's certainly not the quarterback's fault how he got to 0-7, but it was definitely because of our quarterback today that we have that one win in the column. So I'm not going to give Woody any credit, but it does look like this could be used as a galvanizing point for this locker room to say, hey, from a player perspective, Justin, we all have your back. We understand what ownership said about you, but we as players have your back. So perhaps this is a galvanizing moment for this New York Jets team, specifically as an offense. You score 37 or 77, total points in this game, and you probably didn't think that the Jets were going to be the victors. You would have thought that the Bengals went up a lot, like it looked like it was going to be, and then the Jets might have tried to make a phony comeback in garbage time, and that's just not the case. The Jets were in it throughout, although in the beginning of the game it did look a little bit questionable, down 17-3. Looking at some of the team stats from this game, the Jets had more first downs than the Bengals, 25-24 respectively. They had a better third down efficiency. They went 7 of 15, while the Bengals went 4 of 9. The Jets were more aggressive on fourth down. They went 2 of 3. Their only miss was on that first drive offensively. The Bengals went 0 for 1 on their only fourth down attempt, which was 4th and 9 at the very end of the game. The Jets had 502 total yards to the Bengals' 398 total yards, 7.2 yards per play versus 6.9 yards per play, so pretty marginal there. Justin Fields ended with 244 yards passing compared to Flacco's 223. Rushing, the New York Jets had 254 yards rushing as a team. Absolutely massive performance by this run game and offensive line. That did include a handful of Justin Fields designed quarterback runs, which was fantastic. The Bengals ended with 181 rushing yards, and it felt like they were getting some very easy rushing yards at times, but not enough to win ultimately. The Jets averaged 6.9 yards per rush to the Bengals 7.9. They finished with a 60% red zone percentage, 3 of 5, and the Bengals were 3 of 4 in the red zone. New York with a time of possession of 33 minutes and 40 seconds. So basically this tells me that they won in their style of football, right? They wanted to run the ball, 37 attempts. Obviously, you get a lot of Justin Fields rushing attempts baked into those 37. You have 18 for Brees, 11 for Justin, 7 for Isaiah Davis, and then 1 end around to Isaiah Williams that went for 25 yards. So it tells me that they wanted to establish the run. They didn't have Garrett Wilson in this game. Obviously, he's dealing with a knee injury, hoping to get him back after the bye. But they went immediately to their run game. They relied on Breece Hall, who finishes with 18 carries, 133 yards for a 7.4 average and 2 rushing touchdowns. Joe Caporoso of Badlands added this. Breece Hall with 147 total yards and 3 total touchdowns. Isaiah Davis with 109 total yards and a 2-point conversion. Fields was sacked 0 times and had 275 total yards. It felt like a very strong day for the Jets' young offensive tackles as well. So, coupling the run game success with offensive line success, Ryan Fowler had this tweet. The young core for the Jets up front was flat out sensational today, each with 40 pass pro reps. Joe Tippmann, 0 pressures, 0 hits, 0 hurries. Olu Fashanu, 0 pressures, 0 hits, 0 hurries. Rookie Armand Membu, 0 pressures, 0 hits, 0 hurries. So your 3 stud offensive linemen, young offensive linemen still on their rookie deals, are balling out today. And it showed. Breece Hall had a ton of, big holes to work with. Isaiah Davis, the same thing. Justin Fields with the quarterback designed run. It felt like the offensive line was gelling in front of them as well for those situations. When they did pass, and Justin Fields did have 32 total dropbacks, he completed 21 of 32 for 244 passing yards, 1 touchdown, and no interceptions, 0 sacks as well. You have to hang your hat on the fact that the offensive line did very, very well this game. So shout out to the entire offense, Tanner Engstrand for dialing up some really big plays and some big moments. Arian Smith, shout out to him. He had a 23-yard comeback route where he really took advantage of Dax Hill the cornerback on his side where he took advantage of his blind spot. He got Dax Hill to turn his back to Arian Smith, and he took advantage on a comeback route and stopped and put his foot in the ground, came back to the ball, and left Dax Hill wondering what happened. So I thought that was a very, I guess, veteran move to, attack leverage in such a way by Arian Smith that goes mostly unnoticed, especially when you don't receive the ball on certain passes like that. But this time he got the pass, and it was really special to watch him attack leverage that way just as a rookie in his 8th game in the league. So big shout out to him. Also wanted to shout out Jeremy Ruckert and Mason Taylor. They had some very crucial 3rd and short, 4th and short situational catches. Mason Taylor had a big 4th down catch that was really impressive. He ended with 5 catches, 34 yards, and the touchdown from Breece Hall over DJ Turner. Jeremy Ruckert ends with 1 catch for 24 yards on his only target. But it was a crucial situation, and he did a great job of cutting upfield and making a man miss and gaining about 10 to 11 extra yards after contact. So great job by the tight ends in this game. Isaiah Williams and Tyler Johnson are your 2 leading receivers in terms of receptions and yards. They each had 3 receptions apiece, but Tyler Johnson ends with 64 receiving yards and a touchdown. Isaiah Williams, 31 receiving yards. It looks like Allen Lazard was only targeted 2 times. He finishes with 1 catch for 5 yards. Andrew Beck also includes 1 catch for 9 yards. So everybody was getting involved in this offense. It looks like Justin Fields completed passes to 9 different targets in this game. And when you don't have Garrett Wilson, you have to get creative and start trying to find ways to get these guys who are less talented opened. And I think Tanner Engstrand did a great job offensively calling plays to do just that. Defensively, they didn't end up getting any turnovers. That's okay. They only ended up with 1 sack with 2 quarterback hits on top of it. But on the back end, they forced 7 pass breakups or pass deflections, which I thought was huge. If you're not going to be able to get home, and it looked like for most of this day, their front 4 was not able to get home on Joe Flacco, you have to be able to play sound, strong coverage on the back end and create, incomplete passes where it's expected that they're going to catch the ball. Jamien Sherwood had a really big pass deflection. Azareé Thomas had a big one. Quincy Williams had multiple. Jarvis Brownlee, multiple, including the game-sealing 4th and 9 pass breakup. So just a ton of good things to say all around about this football team, this win for this team. They found complementary football when they absolutely needed it most, and I think that is the most important aspect of this win. Is it wasn't the defense pulling along the offense for the entire game and winning a 13-6 defensive stand, and it wasn't a game where, yes, on paper 38 points is a lot to let up by your defense, but it looked like for the majority of the time they were coming up big in crucial situations. It felt like they were getting gashed in the run game at times, and there was that big explosive touchdown pass to T. Higgins. Sure, that was a 3 or 4 play drive for the Bengals. So other than that, it looked like the defense was able to buckle down as much as possible. There are obvious situations that you want to clean up, like the Michael Clemens can't contain the edge on Joe Flacco and he runs for 12 yards on 3rd and 12. Little things like that are certainly going to be frustrating from the defense. But all in all, I think they did a really good job containing Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. If you take away T. Higgins, it was his only catch for 44 yards and a touchdown. So they did a great job. Only 2 targets for him. 19 targets for Jamar Chase, but they limited him to 12 catches, and 91 yards. And I understand 91 yards is a lot of receiving yards on paper, but 7.6 yards per catch is not a ton, right? He's not gashing you for big play after big play, and he's not putting up over 120, 130 yards with a touchdown. So although the yardage output, 91 yards from Chase, is very high, it's a performance that you can hang your hat on because they came in and limited him from finding the end zone. So they certainly did their job there. Noah Fant had some pretty big catches, 3 receptions for 41 yards. Chase Brown had the big touchdown reception against Quincy Williams in man to man. But for the most part, this defense got off the field when they needed to. They generated pressure in the second half, in the fourth quarter specifically when they needed to, where at times in the first half it was just non existent and Flacco had way too much time to throw back there. So, all in all, a fantastic offensive performance, coaching and players. Defensively, big plays when it mattered most, both from coaching and the players, and just overall coaching from Aaron Glenn. Excuse me, the overall coaching from Aaron Glenn, you have to tip your cap to it. This was something that we hadn't seen all season from him specifically. He had his moments where he made critical errors that may have cost this team wins earlier on in the season. I look at the game against Denver, I look at the game against Carolina, and there you can point to multiple instances where his decision making directly affected the outcome of the game. And in this one, if we're going to be honest about the negatives, we have to be honest about the positives. And he absolutely did what was right in the moment for the team, despite what our feelings were real time about that 2-point conversion, and then doubling down and challenging it and winning that challenge. Aaron Glenn is 3-0 on his challenges, and that was the biggest one in the biggest moment for this season. And I'm not saying that because the season is now back on and we're going to run the table and go 10-7 and make the playoffs, but so much was made of, okay, Aaron Glenn has 10 more games to prove that he could be the guy to lead us. And I'm not saying we're fully bought back in and we're on board, but you have to at least acknowledge that the pendulum is shifting back in a much, much positive direction heading into this bye week where we were either facing one and done talk for Aaron Glenn or we were facing, okay, what is the positives that we can build on? We get our best players back after the bye, seemingly, and Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson, Kene and Wangu, get all these guys healthy and allow them to come back and be contributors down the stretch where you can, show some life and win 4 of your last 9 games and finish the season a respectable 5-12 after starting 0-7. So a lot to break down still from this game, both positively and negatively, and we will do that all week right here. So stay tuned, and until next time, I appreciate everybody for tuning in. I'm DTereman signing off. Let's go Jets.